It's been 10 months since it happened. Death just stopped. People stopped passing. On the surface, that sounds fantastic, but the reality is far worse than anything I've ever imagined. I work as a trauma surgeon at one of the busiest hospitals in the country, and believe me, my job shifted significantly after the event. Sure, it seems great when the 68-year-old diabetic with a heart condition comes in, complaining of chest pain. Clinically, he is dead from a heart attack, but aside from some discomfort, he's sent home to his family. They get more time together. But that's the best case scenario. 2 weeks ago, we had a burn victim come in after a high-speed collision that resulted in his semi bursting into flames. Today, we have a torso, and not much else, locked in a supply closet because all he can do is scream and flail. No eyes, no tongue, no limbs to communicate with. We don't know what to do with him. After that call, I retreated to an isolated office, popped open my flask, and downed a significant amount of pills. I rested my elbows on the table, feeling the pounding of my pulse in my temples as I tried to cope. And that's the kind of thing my job has become. I'm more of a handyman than a doctor. People come in with damaged parts, and I try to make them functional again. An 11-year-old boy comes in after being struck by a drunk driver. More than 60% of his bones are broken, shattered. There is no way to get them where they will function again. In the old world, he would have passed. Today, his parents take him home to lay in a bed for eternity. More pills, more booze, more pounding temples. As nursing homes fill up and overflow, many that work in that industry quit their jobs. It has become quite common to see elderly laying on the side of the road, or in dumpsters, or actually buried alive, as families are unable to cope with the concept of caring for an invalid body for eternity. More pills, more booze, my health declines. Yesterday, a normal 30-year-old woman came in, complaining of difficulty breathing. Upon exam, we found that she had suffered a massive stroke the night before. Again, before she would have passed. Now she had to deal with all of her automatic bodily functions shutting down, and her having to take them over consciously. Her pain was from forcing air into her lungs, where before her body did it for her. More pain, more booze. I don't feel well. My temples absolutely hammer. Today a woman miscarried. Now we have to figure out what to do with a swarming fetus only a few months into development. In the break room, drunk and high as usual, I rub my temples, feeling stillness under my fingertips. My eyes snap open. Damn it. They say you never forget your first time, and though it feels like an eternity ago, I can still recall the first day I flew. It wasn't a day out of the ordinary. I remember it quite well, actually. It was a Thursday, and a relatively dull one at that. I had a shift at 4 o'clock and was running a tad late. I remember resting my sweaty forehead against the steering wheel as the red light mocked me with its stubbornness. My foot all the way up to my jittery knee, shook the brake as my eye darted from the light, now green, to the clock on my dash. 3:56. I floored it. It was in moments like these that I longed for what I now possess, the gift of flight. Imagine it. No more traffic jams, no more running behind. I'm sure you've considered its ramifications, and though it doesn't come easily, flying is something anyone can do, so long as you have the dedication. I'll be honest, my first time caught me off guard. Not only was it a painful learning experience, but the mental stress made me tense up. Besides, when you're flying so fast, the air can quickly dry out your eyes, making them tear up. This means just because you want to hit a high altitude doesn't mean you'll have a great view. Patience is a virtue, trust me. The trick is, simply, letting yourself go. Mind over matter. If you tense up, and grit your teeth, and clamp your eyes shut, you aren't going to zip through the air like a superhero. It's all about weightlessness. Don't worry about what's going through your head. In fact, let your mind go out the window. Learn to bear the upset stomach, take a deep breath in, and let yourself go. You'll fly. If you're like me, a somewhat wound-up individual, this will prove quite tricky. We like a firm grip on things. Our lives and jobs and families. It's hard to fly when you're tied down by those things. You may feel slightly embarrassed, nervous, or even overwhelmed your first time. Naturally, flying is an out-of-the-ordinary, out-of-body experience. My first time, for example, my entire face was red, and my hair must have been falling out. The stress was so great that my heart felt like it was going to burst from me, had my chest not been there to catch it. That's normal. Others who've held similar experiences attest to the same. We've suffered hot flashes, rug burns, and the occasional missing teeth. But now, we fly all the time. First-timers have it rough, though. I won't sugarcoat that. I can still remember laying back on the pavement, still bleeding out, and wondering if, perhaps, flying wasn't all it was cracked up to be. You have to weigh your options. Flying is something everyone dreams of experiencing, but is it worth the painful induction? Is it worth the trouble? That's hard to say. I've flown so much now, I've forgotten what it's like to walk on two legs. If you don't mind soaring higher than everyone else, being on a new plane, I'd say give it a try. It only hurts for a moment. However, if you're prone to regret rash decisions, I'd steer clear. Granted, everyone who flies is bound to ask the occasional what-ifs, and that's completely normal. Even now, I still ask myself what my life would have been like if I had just worn a seatbelt. I guess I'll never know. But who cares? I can fly. And so can you. I was raised in a very religious community. God and Christ are still at the very center of my life, and I live every day in service to them. Praising them still excites and ignites the very soul within me, although I must admit, some of the joy and magic I felt when I was much younger has left me. My devotion has not waned, I can assure you, but perhaps the dulling of such pleasure is just the natural, if tragic, effect of aging. But, oh, how wonderful it was when I was a boy. Each year, my particular church would hold a very special service in honor of Good Friday. In preparation for this service, all young men below the age of 13 had the opportunity to enter a contest, a kind of raffle, I suppose. The prize for the winning fellow was to perform a very special role in the upcoming ceremony. All of the boys from our entire community would practically froth at the mouth, waiting for the earliest possible moment when we could throw our hats into the ring. What spurred us on was much more than just the desire to win. It was the true and deep devotion that filled our young hearts. It was thrilling to be among such a crowd. The Good Friday I remember best was that of my last eligible year. I was due to turn 13 in June, and then I would never again be able to enter my name to take part in the service. I had entered every year before then, since I turned 9, but had never once been selected. I remember holding my little ticket with the long number printed on it, hoping I would hear the pastor call it out. My little brother, Frederick, had also entered the contest that year. I dare say he was more excited than I was. When the pastor announced that it was time to select the special winner, I recall how Frederick jumped up out of his seat and cheered louder than anyone else. "All right, gentlemen," said Pastor Francis. "Are you ready?" We all cheered wildly. The pastor continued. "All right now, Dale, would you bring me the basket?" Dale, the pastor's wife, dutifully did as her husband asked. She held the basket full of tickets up, and Pastor Francis fished around rather dramatically for the winner. At last, he had made a selection. "Here it is, folks. The winner and very special participant in this year's Good Friday ceremony is whoever holds the ticket numbered 643. As he read the numbers, I began to shake. So far, each number had perfectly matched my ticket. I listened intently as the pastor went on. 586. Groans interrupted all around. "That's it, folks," said Pastor Francis. "Who's got it? Who's got it? Where are ya?" I could barely move. The winning number was right there, on my ticket. To this day, I wonder if that wasn't the greatest moment of my life. I had never won anything before, and my eyes nearly filled with tears as the realization washed over me. It was then that I turned to look at Frederick. His bowed head and downcast eyes left me with little doubt as to what he was feeling. My heart ached for him. I'd never seen him so disappointed. I knew in that moment that this was a divine test, and as difficult as it would be, I was determined to pass it. Before Frederick could protest, I grabbed his ticket and switched it with mine. "Pastor," I shouted, "the winner is right here, over here." I looked down at my little brother and smiled. He beamed up at me, the very picture of gratitude. I knew I'd made his Good Friday. A moment later, he was headed up to stand with Pastor Francis. "Well, hello there, son," said the pastor. "Are you ready to perform the most important duty of this entire service?" Pastor Francis held the microphone to my brother's mouth, and without hesitation, the boy said, "Yes, sir." The deacons laid the cross down and positioned my brother upon it. I was so proud of him. He didn't even scream until the second nail went in, which was remarkable for a boy of his age. When the deacons had finished, they hoisted him up for all to see. Frederick's wide eyes surveyed the cheering crowd before settling on me. I smiled, wiping away a tear, and silently blessed him as he began to convulse. I knew in that moment that even though I had missed my last chance to have such a great honor, that it couldn't have gone to a more deserving young man.